Hello all, BowTieSecurityGuy here. I'm just going to pop up for a moment and talk to you about one of our sponsors, clipfinder.org. I love them. I've been using them for a while. They take long form videos and create short form content. It's super easy to use, completely mindless, and allows you to grow your social and your brand relatively quickly. I've increased my social, clicks and all that stuff through YouTube by, literally 10, 20,000 just by incorporating shorts into my content. It's incredibly important to take some time to do that, but it also takes a lot of time to edit those videos. Clipfinder.org makes it easy. If you're looking for a way to support my sponsors or support the channel, please take a look, create an account, and check them out. Now, on with the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bowtie Security Guy After Dark. This is episode 40. Kind of insane that I've made it 40 episodes doing this. It's one of those things that I started it and I'm like, oh, I'll just do it for a little bit. And then it's just been too much fun. My guest today is Frank Kane. Frank has spent a lifetime kind of educating on AI and a bunch of other stuff, and we'll definitely get to that. But I want to talk about what originally kind of, let's go back to your childhood.
Ooh.
Were you a tinkerer? Were you that kind of kid who was always breaking stuff? Like, tell me a little bit about how you got into technology.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I was a kid that like took the record player apart and tried to put it back together unsuccessfully, much to his parents' chagrin, right? So
I
for
was
sure.
that kid.
Yep. But yeah, what really got me started, I think, was when my dad bought me a Commodore VIC-20 way back in the 80s. You know, that's what really kicked it off for me. So it just opened a whole new world, you know, like I can make things happen on this screen right now and have control over it. And went off and took a basic class.
What was some of the first stuff that you did, like as far as like when you first got that computer? For me, it was like getting connected to bulletin boards and like connecting with this whole like world that I didn't know existed. I mean, back in the day, like the internet was still very fledgling for us seasoned professionals. And the way you communicated like was so different than it is now, this instant communication thing. It was more of like an underground club, for lack of anything better.
Yeah, for sure. Like I was into the BBS scene a little bit later. The VIC-20 wasn't really good at that stuff, but you know, later on, you know, I remember getting my first 14K modem and, you know, working up to 56K. My gosh, how wonderful was that, right?
It was an absolute game changer. And at that time, like Napster and all those things, like there were no real laws around this piracy stuff. They didn't even really know what to do with it. Hell, computer crimes didn't even really have fully fleshed out laws until the 90s. They had the Computer Abuse Act, but it was so loose and a lot of people didn't know how to define it. What kind of led you to a career in technology? Like, did you go to school for it, or like what ended up happening?
Well, I went to school for electrical engineering, and back then that did have a computer engineering component to it. So I had to learn assembly language and stuff as part of that. But you know, I was already programming based on my past history with the VIC-20 and the Commodore 64 and the PC after that, and then on the Mac. But what led to actual employment? I was just hacking around on the side, making video games with my wife. So we had a Macintosh video game that was distributed as shareware called Fracas, and another one called Speed Demon way back in the 90s. And basically, Sierra Online, if you remember them, they saw it and they said, "Hey, we need people to port our games to Macintosh, like, you know, King's Quest and Space Quest and all those old games.
Man.
Suit Larry, yeah." So yeah, they flew us out to California, and that's kind of where we got our start.
So hang on, you were just like hanging out making games yourself, you and your wife, just in your house, like just for fun, and then somehow, how did Sierra even figure out who the hell you were? Like, how did you even make that connection? Sierra Games was literally my, EverQuest, all the stuff from my childhood. Like King's Quest was another one that was just amazing. So like, how did that even come to fruition? Like they just found you somehow, or were you selling the games that you were making?
Yeah, they were shareware. So, you know, back then you'd get like shareware compilations on CDs or on Usenet or whatever it was, right? So I guess somebody at Sierra played one of our games and said, "Hey, let's track this guy down," because it was kind of a niche skill back then, you know, making games on the Macintosh.
And they were like, "Hey, we need you." So you became full-time game porters to the Macintosh platform. Did you and your wife both get hired?
We did. She came on as a graphic designer and worked on some of the game manuals while I was working on the programming side. So yeah, it was a bit of a package deal.
That's wild. So they fly you out. What was that like? Like, I mean, Sierra at that time was relatively huge, right? I mean, that was a big opportunity. They were one of the bigger game makers of that era. Like, what was that like for you just getting that opportunity as a game fan yourself? You're like in with royalty now, basically.
It was surreal for sure. It was overwhelming. Like, it was just kind of went with the flow, to be honest. So the real thing though was that I was completely self taught when it came to programming. Right. So here I was going to this actual job interview where I knew they were going to ask me like real programming questions, and I had no idea what I was talking about.
Right.
Right. I was just hacking stuff together, whatever worked, and pasting it together however I could. So I actually read a book on C++ on the plane ride out there. And somehow I faked my way through the interview to the point where they actually gave me an offer. So I guess it worked.
Well, I mean, I feel like so much of our career is about adapting and overcoming quickly.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of us who've been in technology and cyber for years have had to kind of learn to pivot and kind of be agile in that perspective. So you're self-taught, and for us and for the people listening who think self-taught, they think YouTube, but YouTube didn't exist, right?
Ooh.
So self-taught for people like us who are more seasoned was failing over and over again until we figured it out. Because I mean, there was not even a lot of books on what you were doing because it was a very new type technology. What made you even start to like think you were able to do this? Like you built games within the Macintosh, dev environment, and then now you're being asked to port those games. Was it just kind of like I'll figure it out, or how was that first week on the job?
It was intense. I mean, Sierra had their own programming language basically called SCI. So they had like their own interpreter that was built at the assembly level.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
Yeah, so, I was, like, trying to debug PowerPC assembly code on the first week for the first time in my life, so, yeah, it was intimidating, but you're right, it's all about adaptability. You just, can't let it scare you off and just dive in and start playing around and get a feel for it until you, can actually control what's going on.
Well, you moved pretty quickly too. You were there for a couple years, and then you moved onto a software engineering role at Looking Glass, which
Mhm.
another relatively big gaming. Like they did Flight and other stuff too, right? I remember Looking Glass because I've seen that logo. What did
Yeah.
they do? What was the job like there?
Yeah, they were more known for, like, System Shock and Thief and games like that, so,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely some Rockstar developers there that later went on to Austin to do other cool things, down in that market. But yeah, that was cool. So basically, what happened is a couple of years after we went to Sierra, they got bought out, and the Ken Williams and Roberta Williams just basically cashed out and went and lived on a yacht for the rest of their life, right? So we had to find a new job. So yeah, I mean, basically, Looking Glass Studios in Cambridge liked my resume, and they want someone to work on their flight simulator, Flight Unlimited 3. And yeah, went out there, and I mean, the commute to Cambridge wasn't all that fun, but it was definitely a lot of smart people that I learned from there. So that was a great experience too.
Did you know anything at all about planes or flights, like when you got the job?
No, again, it was all self-taught. I had an interest in game physics. So like I had a book on game physics that was like maybe that thick that I knew inside and out. But apart from
Right.
that, no. Like one of the first things that I did when I got there is one of the fellow developers like took me up in his private plane and said, "Hey, you want to fly around for a little bit?" I never flew in my life, so I'm like, I hope
Right.
I don't kill us. But it did give you sort of a feel of the physics and what it's supposed to feel like to fly a plane.
Oh, that's interesting, and then you were able to translate that into actually the stick and the movement and stuff like that with the code later. Did you do lots of flights after that? Like, did you ever, like, continue flying and just like, get obsessed with it or anything like that? Or was it like you did that game and you just kinda moved on?
I mean, after that, I moved on to doing actual real flight simulators for like the Air Force and the military and stuff. So that was my next gig. But
Cool.
no, I didn't actually do any flying myself after that. Just didn't have the time to get the license. It's a
Yeah.
big commitment to actually get a flight license.
But it is, yeah, and I actually went to a military convention, a couple of years back and got to do one of their F-17 flight sims. They're they're real. They're intense, and it's really impressive, what they can do in a simulator environment now. So, you, like went from a software engineer, basically a dude who was just kind of building this stuff on his own, with an electrical engineering degree, who got somehow scored a job at Sierra, who's like, hey, why don't you come hang out? And you're like, cool. And you're researching on the fly. You then move into this software role where you build like one of the earlier flight sim games. And then you turn into like the director at worlds.com. Like, how the like your career progression is insanity. Like it's so rapid and so quick. Like, how did that come to be?
Yeah, that's I don't even remember how I got into Worlds. That was kind of a weird one. Man, yeah, I mean, I think what happened there, if I remember right, is I just couldn't take the commute to Cambridge anymore. So I lived down in the suburbs, and that 2 hour train ride every each day just
Yeah,
was getting to me. Plus, I had a young baby at home and stuff, so it wasn't working out. So yeah, I just put my name out there on the interwebs, and basically
that's
worlds.com found me. Yeah,
that's back when any of us security professionals or technical professionals could just kind of say, "Hey, we're looking for a job," and then you'd get an offer. Like it
those were
was,
the days. Yeah.
yeah, it was a much simpler time at that. You ended up kind of doing a bunch of software engineering stuff, and then you ended up at Amazon for a bit, and then like what was working at like one of the largest companies in the world, like that had to have been kind of a culture shock because a lot of the places that you've worked previously were kind of smaller mom and pop type places that had gotten some startup and gotten some runway, but you went from that like to then going into the management role at Amazon. Tell me a little bit about like kind of what that leadership experience is like and kind of what it taught you as far as being a leader. I think a lot of people don't understand. Normally people who are technical fall into leadership roles because they just do technical really good, and
Mhm.
then they say, hey, you should lead now. And that tends to be how it happens. But how did it happen with you?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really all that different from what you said, except I think the ending was a little bit better. um, But yeah, I mean, it's another case of like just being thrown into the fire, and kind of learning as you go. So I had no idea about how to do e-commerce or machine learning or personalization when I got there. I just kind of had to learn it in my first week. But yeah, I started off as an engineer there, so I was working on like people who also bought product recommendations, things like that. But yeah, within a year or two, I think they actually put me into a management role, and I guess my boss just saw something in me. So um,
And tell the audience here, what training do they give you as a leader? I can tell you my personal experience is a whole bunch of nothing. I'm assuming yours was very similar.
Yeah, no training at all. But in all fairness, they had some of the best leaders on the planet there that I could learn from. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was more about learning through example and like seeing, okay, here's a really good leader. What is he doing? What is she doing? How do I emulate that and work that into my own management style?
So, what are some of the lessons that you kind of learned from that constant growing, constant like honestly, your career was very similar to mine where it's like you're just constantly learning new stuff. Was burnout a thing? Like did you end up hitting walls where you were like putting in obscene hours and you just kind of killed yourself for the job? And what did that look like as far as like your psyche, relationships and
Mhm.
things? Like was it hard?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Amazon's a pretty demanding place and it's only gotten more demanding. I think I had more of a balance than most people there, but that's not saying much. And yeah, it was affecting my health. My doctor's like, hey, you gotta slow down a little bit or this is gonna kill you eventually. So that was a bit of a wake up call. And
And how old were you when you had that conversation? Like 30s?
yeah, I mean, early 40s maybe, like too young for that conversation for sure.
I think all of us who kind of grew up in this kind of chaos environment of constant always on end up having that talk like, "Hey, you're killing yourself and
Mhm,
um is it really worth it?" And I think it was right around the same time for me too where I realized that I had sacrificed kind of so much of my person and my health for the
yeah,
job, and I don't really know what drove it, right? I can't tell you that, like, it was my leaders that were even doing it, and, I really feel like it was m self-inflicted where I was just like, "This needs to get done, I'm the only one that can do it." I think a little bit
mhm.
was hubris, right? Where I'm like, I could do anything, like, I'm unstoppable, there's no way." And then when people see you running that fast, leaders will normally encourage that behavior. Like, good or bad, um, it can be very destructive because you yourself don't see that you've already left 100% behind. You're kind of just in that constant state of burnout where burnout is now
Mhm.
your existence.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly addictive to achieve stuff and be recognized for it, and I think that's part of it. You just you like doing stuff and building stuff, and like you want to keep doing more and more of that to some extent. Plus, your sense of identity gets wrapped up in the company to some extent as well, and that's probably not a healthy thing.
Well,
Uh,
I think so much of I think for men in general, we and women too, but we really our identity is our careers in many
mhm,
cases. And that was a big wake up call for me when I got laid off is like I realized that I had tied so much of who I was as a person to my career
mhm.
and how toxic that was. Especially now when you've got Oracle, sending out an email to 30,000 people saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for your 20 years of service. Good luck, bro. Like today's
Mhm.
your last day." Like we're now in a job in a career field that stability is no longer a thing, right? It is no longer a guarantee. And I think that's where you saw that too, right? You did some time as the senior manager of technology for IMDb, working on a bunch of cool stuff there. And then you just, I think you hit where a lot of us are, where we're like, I'm just going to build my own thing. So tell me a little bit about kind of what you built with Sundog Enterprises or Sundog Software, and kind of talk about like what caused you to go on that journey because I think a lot of people going
Mhm.
into cyber have a very misconception. If they've been listening to my podcast long enough, that's probably been destroyed. But if this is their first episode, there's no hiring shortage. None of that is real. Most of the people coming out of college aren't going to enter a six-figure job. You're lucky to make 35, 40 grand at an entry-level cyber role.
Mhm.
Um, and stability is no longer a thing in technology. It's just non-existent, where every single day you hear about more people being laid off. Me and you probably together have at least 30 or 40 friends looking for jobs right now.
Oh, easily. Yep.
Like, and these are really talented, brilliant people, but a lot of times they're not getting opportunities to interview. And when they are given opportunities to interview, they don't have the social skills because they've been a tech their whole life and they haven't worked on soft skills. So when they interview, they ramble on or they kind of go off on tangents or they get really excited about something and lose focus. And then they don't end up getting the job because they're not the right fit. Like, what made you decide, you know what, I'm just done with this. I'm going to build my own thing?
Things weren't quite that bad when I left IMDb, but they were definitely heading in that direction, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's definitely an important story because learning how to work for yourself is an important skill in this environment. You're right because there's no loyalty on either side with companies and employees these days. So it's turned into a toxic relationship. But yeah, working for yourself is one way out. So my personal story was, yeah, I was getting a little bit burnt out. That's why I went to IMDb and kind of hid out there for a little while at Amazon. IMDb is a subsidiary of Amazon for those who don't know. And that was a fun place to be for a while. But when you do something for 9 years, you're going to get burnt out no matter what it is, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I mean, on the side, so going back to when I was working on flight simulators, sort of an unsolved problem in that world was how to make realistic 3D clouds for flight simulators, and that was something that I kept tinkering with on the side just to keep my coding skills up, basically. So when the day finally came, when I said, "Well, it's time for us to go," and really that was precipitated by my wife not being able to take the weather in Seattle any longer, which is a valid concern. Um,
She was just like, I'm done.
yeah,
We
pretty
need
much. Yep. So I said, okay, let's try and make a product out of this thing I've been tinkering with for a while. So we were selling that to some defense contractors as sort of an SDK, and I was making almost enough money to live off of. So we packed up, moved to Florida where things are cheaper, and started doing some freelance work at that point. Um,
You were selling simulated clouds?
Clouds and water, yes, oceans. So for both marine simulation and flight simulation, and based
Amazing.
on yeah.
So you would go to these people and you'd be like, "Hey, your clouds and your water suck, but I
Yep.
have a solve for that." How
Pretty
did
much, yeah. That's the plan, and it worked
how does
because they
that
did suck. So
yeah. You're like, "Hey, So you created a basically clouds and water, and sold them in a digital format to defense contractors and things for flight simulations to create a more realistic environment.
Right. But the important point is that I started tinkering on that while I still had a job, right? So
I,
I didn't
I
have to
think
like, yeah.
no. I think that's the big key thing is every single person in technology who has lasted longer than 10 years has side hustles.
Hmm.
And we don't have side hustles because we don't like our jobs. We have side hustles because we need some semblance of sanity and something we have full control over. And like for me, it's like building movie props and things like that. And then I do the
Hmm.
mentoring and all those different things. But it's so important to have kind of a side gig. That way, if you do get laid off or if you are just tired of doing that, you have the runway to kind of say, hey, I'm doing this already, maybe I could just put a little bit more gas on this and turn it into something actually kind of that I could make money at and continue to make cash at.
Yeah, exactly. Having a plan B ready to go at all times is key.
Which is weird, right? I think the story that's being sold in schools and the cert, boot camps and all that stuff is basically like job security guaranteed six figures, with this degree. And
Hmm.
I feel like so many people are perpetuating this lie. Even professionals in our field are doing it. And it's not real. There's literally no data to back any of these things. It came from a survey that was done that basically goes out and says, "Do you have enough people to support your organization?" And the answer is always going to be no.
Right.
And they then take that as there is a shortage of cyber professionals. So they're not technically lying. Yes, there is a shortage, but we also don't have the money to buy them.
Hmm.
It's like all of us who are in technology, it's like, okay, well, you can get an employee in the US for 150,000 or you can hire six people in Poland or India. And it becomes a discussion where you've got to justify headcount in the United States because they're drastically higher in
Hmm.
cost. So you built out this company, you've turned it into a successful business. When did you start doing speaking and kind of turning that into like another side hustle where you're like doing public speaking and talking about AI? Like, how did that come? Is that just something like a passion project that turned into something or what?
No, it just kind of stumbled into it. So, I mean, I think another takeaway is to like always be open to new opportunities and like, be willing to experiment. What happened is Udemy gave me a call out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, you're kind of an expert in recommender systems and personalization machine learning based on your time at Amazon. We need courses in that for our platform." And this is back when Udemy was kind of a new thing. So I said,
Yeah.
why not? I'll give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Um, and that actually is what blew up for me. So fast forward to today, I have over 1.1 million people around the world who have paid to take a course from me, and it's just been wildly successful. So
Oh my
that's
God,
yeah, that's
dude, that's
the
amazing.
that's where it ended up, and that's where we're at right now.
I always say like there I don't believe in luck, right? It's when opportunity meets preparedness. Like when you're
Right.
like it's just being ready to take that opportunity and not being afraid to fail. I feel like we grew up in a generation where failure wasn't like a bad thing. Like it was just like failure was accepted. It was what's going to happen. Hell, Amazon does the failure awards, right? Like where they reward their largest failures because in order to innovate, you're going to need to break some eggs, you're going to need to fail. But so many organizations I think are becoming less innovative. They're looking for easy, safe solutions.
Hmm.
They want easy stability, and they don't want to kind of try to change the world. They just want to kind of exist in it. And then you've kind of built out these AI and machine learning courses. Unbelievable that you've been able to kind of do that. Where do you see kind of AI going? I know a lot of people are like AI is taking jobs. There's nothing statistically that shows that. Like
That's true.
there's no data to back that. Is AI going to affect jobs? 100%. But it's going to augment them. But what are your thoughts as an AI expert and somebody who was doing this before it was cool, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a tool, not a replacement, right? I mean, it's being used as an excuse for a lot of layoffs. We're like, we're going to lay off half our staff because AI, but of course that's BS, right?
Yeah,
It's just
it's
because of
just
shareholder pressure, you know.
yep, it's a way to like I mean, a perfect example is Oracle had 95% profits last year. They didn't need to lay off 30,000 people, but they want to invest more heavily in AI and server cost.
Hmm.
And that cost comes with the money. And it's a gamble right now because you don't know where it's going to go. You don't know how successful it's going to be. And you don't know how quickly your customers are going to adapt to it. So that gamble no longer becomes a gamble if you can remove 30,000 headcount from your roster and basically pay for your AI investment without taking a risk.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and Amazon's doing the same thing, right? They've laid off tens and tens of thousands of people as well in the name of AI, and it's been their most senior people, you know, and I think it's starting to affect them as to what they can actually deliver. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, it's going to make us more efficient. Like as developers, you know, we don't need to like waste a lot of time writing boilerplate code anymore. But that hasn't really translated into an increase in how often we're shipping new features and new products, right? Like we're not being flooded with great new products because of AI yet,
Right.
um, which is interesting, right? Um, but you know, I think it is actually going to increase the need for people like you and me because you know you do need senior engineers who can guide these tools to do the right thing and have a you know coherent architecture. And
Yeah.
now you know the news today is about this new Claude Mythos thing that's just going to like torpedo IT security apparently.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the need for
We
people to deal with that is going to be huge, I think.
I mean, we keep hearing that, right? We hear that same thing with um, quantum computing. You and
Hmm.
I both know if quantum computing comes out tomorrow, becomes commercialized, you can grab it. That doesn't mean RSA is broken the same day. You then have to build tools, you have to build code that interacts with that, that can move at the same speed as quantum as everything else to be able to actually take advantage of being able to decrypt or break encryption and things of that nature. Like it's not like a tomorrow type situation.
Hmm.
And I agree with you, like at the whole thing with Claude. Like there's so much hype around AI, and the reality is a lot of the people who are working on it and working in it don't actually know fully what it's doing. They don't. They built it a certain way, and it's doing stuff that's not fully supposed to do. It's not thinking on its own necessarily, but it's
Hmm.
doing things that it's not fully programmed to do. We just had that story recently, where that Alibaba like had built a tool and it broke out and then created a backdoor for itself and then built crypto miners because it knew it needed money to be able to fund compute power. So it was like, hey, if I build some crypto miners, this will allow me to get to my objective faster. And I think we're going to see more and more of that. My biggest concern is AI being unleashed, and it's already starting to happen. And a buddy of mine has already built a bot, and this isn't like selling his product because he's not telling anybody about it. Um, that can trade stocks, right? And
Hmm.
you've got a system that's going to be more intelligent to kind of look at those things. But as far as replacing your senior level workers, I think it's going to be hard. But entry level, I do feel like there is a very good chance that companies will be okay with good instead of exceptional for entry level type sock work.
Hmm.
You know, and AI can do those repetitive tasks. The argument is like your sock worker is going to get burned out, like you and I working in the sock for a while or writing code. You get burned out. Like doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is very tiresome, but an AI doesn't. And that's where there's some things that I find very interesting. Same with like pen testing. I got to demo a new vendor here that does AI pen testing, and it's already found 7 0 days.
Hmm.
You know, that's where I think there it's going to be hard. So, what are your like advice for these kids who are coming out of college? There's thousands of them. They were sold this false bill and now they're trying to find a job. Like what do you think is the most important skill that they could learn?
Probably self-sufficiency, you know, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. Can you do
Yeah.
something on your own that generates money? You know, can you not be dependent on a big employer who might turn around and lay you off tomorrow? So, you know, you got to be resilient and make your own way to some extent.
Anyone I talk to who's trying to like break into cyber, the first question I have is, do you have at least a year's worth of salary?
Hmm.
Because if you don't, if you get laid off, you're going to be struggling because most people, a recruiter gave me a great stat. She said, for every $10,000 that you want to make, you're going to have to wait at least a month to find that opportunity. So if you want to make 100,000, it's going to take you 10 months to find that.
Yep.
And I've seen that, and it's been quite accurate. Um, for a majority of people, you've created kind of a niche for yourself. How do you keep kind of innovating and kind of growing that niche and growing your brand? Are you still putting out videos on Udemy, or are you kind of just continuing to do that same thing where you're riding the success of the previous videos because they're still being watched, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a compound interest kind of thing, because you do get to ride that earlier success and keep building upon it over time. But yeah, I mean, you got to adapt still. It does seem like there's sort of a declining interest in long form video learning and maybe more of an increasing interest in short form, in human interactions and human relationships, like in cohort learning or communities or coaching and things like that. So I'm starting to focus more on those human focused learning activities as opposed to these passive video based ones.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I agree with you. The so I've recently gotten into YouTube, and I did a bunch of research to kind of figure out how to do things. The short form video content is astronomically higher for engagement. Like
Hmm.
to an just I'm up 30,000% or something this month, just because I started putting out short form content of my long form videos. And keep in mind, some of my long form videos are only 7 to 10 minutes, but that's considered long form now.
Hmm.
I feel like we are going into a kind of dystopian type environment where we're slowly losing connection with kind of that human side of us. And I feel like there's gonna be kind of a rollback where they're gonna kind of be like a revolt, so to speak, against the clankers. My
Hmm.
favorite term for AI and bots. But do you see that happening where, like, in the next 5 years, people are gonna be like, "I'm not using that company because they use AI." I feel like that might become a big deal to people, like,
Yeah.
very similar to, like, I'm only gonna work with this company because they're an American-based company, like, I feel like it's gonna be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, people inside the tech bubble don't even see this happening, right? Like they just think it's all ponies and rainbows and AI is going to save the world. But when you come out here outside the tech bubble, like, when I lived in Florida or now in the outskirts of LA, you get to see what real people are saying about it. And they don't like it at all. Like they want
Oh,
nothing to do with it. And you do talk to people who are like, I'm not using Amazon anymore because of what they've done to their employees or because they keep shoving AI down my throat. I'm not
yep,
using Meta anymore because, they keep trying to shove AI down my throat. So, or I'm not using, company X because they maybe use this AI powered customer service tool that I don't
yeah.
like. So yeah, there's definitely a backlash out there, and it could blindside people.
Well, I feel like people are ignoring it, and that's the
Hmm.
thing that's kinda wild to me. It's like, companies are going really big on AI because, like you said, inside the tech bubble, everyone's like, "This is amazing. This is the greatest thing since email." You
Hmm.
know? It's gonna change the world. Um, and then you've got companies like, let's use OpenAI. They're
Yeah.
literally hemorrhaging money. They have not
Hmm.
made a profit a single month since their existence. They are just hemorrhaging investor cash at a rate that's astronomical, to the tune of billions of dollars. But for some reason, people look at them and look at the other AIs. Claude is another one that's not been really profitable. Like, it's very difficult to be profitable because the server infrastructure and cost to run these massive large language models are going to almost start to outweigh the benefits of removing them from your environment. It's like, hey, we got
Right.
rid of our whole contractor staff. Yeah, but you're now paying $1.8 million in compute power to use the chatbot AI. Like, it's just we're shuffling the blame someplace else. It's very similar to like, I think when email came out, where everyone's like, the post office is gonna go away. We're
Hmm.
never gonna need to send a letter again. Um, what are your thoughts kind of on just the way this is growing and kind of the speed that it's growing and the amount of money that's being thrown into it? Like, I kind of wish I had started some sort of startup that just tried to fill in this fix AI problem here, and then
Hmm.
just sold it during this whole AI thing, called it done.
Yeah.
But I have this stupid thing called morals, and I can't just sell a fake an idea.
I hate those. Yeah,
Yeah, no, they
absolutely.
ruin everything.
But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, first of all, let me just say that AI is super cool from a technology standpoint, right? Like,
Amazing.
yeah, like in
Yeah,
the '80s when I was playing with Eliza on my VIC 20, and like this is the dream, right? This is what we all wanted to see happen. So that's super cool to see. But I agree, the economics just aren't working out. And when we get to the point where we stop subsidizing these things with trillions of dollars of money that is coming from probably your retirement account,
yeah,
the prices are going to keep skyrocketing. And they already are. Like the Opus 4.6 token costs are starting to get prohibitively high for a lot of applications. And
yeah,
I assume Mythos will be even more. Like case in point, we talked about Mythos from a security standpoint earlier. Their
yep,
paper said that they had to spend like $20,000 for every application that they tried to find 0 days on.
yeah,
So now, if you want to protect yourself from Mythos, you have to spend at least $20,000 just to like get that protection money, basically, right?
yeah. It's
But
almost like we're being extorted in
yeah,
reality, right?
but it's being
Uh,
wrapped up in this like very altruistic package, like
yeah,
oh, we're holding
yeah.
back the release of this model for the benefit of humanity of it.
They're like a mob boss. Like, hey, would suck if your software got impacted by this. Tell you what,
Exactly.
for 20 grand, we can keep you safe. It's
But
the guy who comes in and breaks your window and says, "Oh, really be bad if another window got broken in this neighborhood."
it's kind of where we're at. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but they are looking for an IPO soon, so it's hard to know. But you're right.
That's
It's
yeah,
getting expensive. Like I even have like a stupid little AI tool that makes practice exams for my courses, right? And already that tool is like ballooned from like costing me like $10 to run to more like $200 to run. So it's starting to
yeah,
like get into the territory like, would it be cheaper to just do this the old fashioned way? Almost.
yeah. You're like,
So
this is a 20x multiplier from when I started.
mhm.
What's the and I think that's something a lot of people are missing out on is hyperinflation on top of all of this is really causing a ton of this problem. Your basic meal has gone up almost 20 to 30%, but your average raise is only 3.1, 3%. So companies in general, like even though you may think you're getting a raise, you've already lost 17% for that year.
Yep, for sure.
There's so many people I talk to, they're like, well, I don't understand why I'm so broke. And I was like, well, it's because you were living far outside your means previously. And now you're even further because inflation has increased everything that you do by 20%.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to get lost in the minutia, I think, of technology and kind of all the flash. And I'm not down on AI, and I want that very clear. I love some of the beautiful things that it's doing with medical breakthroughs and some of the things. A guy recently fed his dog's CRISPR DNA into an AI platform and actually figured out and cured his dog's disease, right? These things are going to happen, and quantum computing and other things are going to truly change our ability to research things at a rapid pace, from a research and cancer perspective. Like, there's a very high chance, like a perfect example is GLP-1, right? The weight loss drug.
Yeah.
um, an AI model was built to basically increase production on that astronomically and increase its viability and what it's able to do, and basically made one dude, a single man, billions of dollars because he figured out how to do this. And I think we're going to have a lot more of those like AI millionaires that figure out a tool, build something kind of neat, that solves a very specific problem and does it in a rapid way as we grow. But there's going to be, for every one of those, there's like 10,000 that are selling you snake oil.
Hmm.
Like, it's
That's the
going to,
problem, by democratizing access to AI, like everybody's putting out their own AI thing, right? So how do you break through all that noise? Um, we see the same thing in content creation, like you and me, right? There's just so many other people making videos out there. How do you break through all of that? And it's the same thing with what AI is enabling.
yeah. And I think I mean, AI and content's a perfect example, right? You have
Mhm.
content creators that are not even human. You have people who are utilizing female avatars because the content creation has gotten so good, where they'll create these thirst trap videos. They'll literally have millions of followers. There was a Taiwanese woman recently, if I remember correctly, who was wearing like an AI face, a deep fake, and her mask fell on a live stream, and like everyone saw what she actually looked like, and she lost, 200,000 followers. But it doesn't matter because a lot of these companies have realized very quickly that, hey, we can just put out crap and you're going to look at it. And all we need you to do is look at it long enough to get pissed off or have some sort of illicit reaction. And the more angry you are, the more frustrated you are, the
Hmm.
more you should distrust a video. Like,
Yeah, and that's going to compound with people too. Like, people are going to be walking away from these platforms entirely if that's the feeling that they come back with, right? So, again, it's not really a very good reinforcing loop for these platforms to be in.
no, we're starting to see a shift. YouTube just recently put out some stats where they're starting to see a shift back to long form content where people are looking for 40-minute to an hour plus long videos that are thought pieces and things of that nature. Like you have the game historian who does these amazing documentaries. He's been doing them for years, has built, millions of followers. He's just like, you know what, my heart's not in it anymore. I'm done. But that content is now starting to make a comeback where those long form videos are starting to be what people look for because they're realizing that the short form videos are kind of programming them how to think, how to respond,
Hmm.
and to a scary degree, right? And that's where I'm concerned about AI primarily is the ability to rapidly disseminate misinformation in a video format that feels real, looks real, and elicits a response. And then the
Yeah.
more people who are enraged by it, the more validity it gets. And that's the thing that gets really scary is during a crisis situation, and we saw it with the last crisis with the flooding. People were releasing videos of like this, woman carrying this guy and all these other stuff, and people were like, "Oh, why can't the man do that?" It's like because it's not real. Like there, none of this video. This didn't even happen. This was a complete, created situation because that video will get 1 million hits, and they'll get paid out, a couple $1,000 for that. And if they do it on rapid scale,
Yeah.
you can grow really quickly and make a ton of money off of AI content.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing to stop too. How do platforms identify what's real and what's fake in the world of AI? So I don't know.
And
It's
how it's getting so much faster, right? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, the new engine from Chat. I don't know if you've seen the new video engine from Chat. It's scary real.
Mhm.
To a point where that polished AI look doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So
But
you're
I think
getting
it
quality that's almost perfect.
Yeah, and I think it's just gonna result in people losing their trust in technology entirely to some extent, right? So maybe
Agreed.
this all just corrects itself in the end somehow. I don't know what it ends up
I
as,
really
but
feel like everyone's going to become a security professional. In mind, everyone's going to become overly paranoid and question everything. Right?
maybe that's a good thing. Yeah.
I don't see it as a bad thing long term. It's the short term that's the concern, is because while we're making that transition from everyone gets paranoid, you have a lot of people who are buying into it. And those same people are, you know, going to vote, going to
Yeah.
do things based on videos that they've seen that were completely falsified or things that can dramatically impact our countries, not just our country, but other countries too. Like there's been a bunch of election tampering in different third world countries
Mhm.
utilizing social media. Cambridge Analytica was basically using social media data in a large language model to identify people who are on the fence politically, and then they served them ads to basically change their voting mind based on what they saw. Like that type of targeted thing, I think, is going to become more and more. And as our attention becomes more and more monetized, there's more and more drive for people to do that. Like you
Yeah.
and I as content creators, it's like, do I really want to create like a 2-minute video? Well, no, not really. But I also want to reach more people because I want to help more people and kind of be a voice of reason in this chaos. So it's this weird kind of dichotomy. Like, what type of content besides the teaching classes? What other content are you kind of putting out there?
Oh, for me, it's all just education. So, whatever thoughts enter my head in LinkedIn, basically. So, um, but yeah, I mean, that's a good example, actually. I mean, LinkedIn even isn't immune to this. Like, I see a lot of AI generated garbage there as well,
Oh
and
man, tons of it. I mean, they're even charging you for it now. You can just have them, create a post for you. You can write it with
Yeah.
AI and stuff. Like it is a function of premium.
Yeah, yeah, it's maddening to see, but people like you and I can fight it a little bit. If we have enough of an audience there, we can say, "Hey, that's fabricated. This is wrong. This is made up. This is inaccurate." I
I
mean, I
see
kind of
both
feel like,
doing that a lot, where we will post something and go, "Yeah, this is not at all factual."
yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like that guy on the internet is like, somebody on the internet is wrong. Hang on, I need to leap into action. But maybe that's needed more now than ever. I don't know.
I'm right there with you. Like, so when I originally got into this social media game, it was by accident. I had hit LinkedIn way too hard because I got laid off, and people told me, "Hey, you need a LinkedIn presence," and I was like, "Well, I have no online presence. I've been a hacker my whole life. Like, what do I need to be?" And they're like, "Well, if you don't have one, you're not going to get hired." And I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." So I hit really hard, and then I grew super, super fast. And I was just kind of floored at how quickly and how many people you can reach. And if you do it for good reasons, how much good you can do,
Hmm.
right? And how many people you can help. Like a lot of your free educational content, which you put out a ton of stuff. And I highly recommend checking out your LinkedIn. Do you have a YouTube also?
I do. It's been a little bit neglected. LinkedIn primarily.
Cool. You post all the time, right? And you're
Hmm.
not posting slop. You're not posting the same crap every day. You're actually posting thought provoking stuff. It's why I like wanted to invite you on, just because you're somebody who's doing it right. You're using your audience and your power to basically promote things that make sense and to share knowledge and kind of grow the community as a whole. Where if you look at a lot of these influencers and anyone who sees somebody who's got like 100,000 followers, what I want you to do is I want you to go into their LinkedIn and I want you to click on their posts and I want you to see that they've literally posted the same video 19 times.
Hmm.
Like, and they do that because it tricks the algorithm into thinking it's a new content. And then each person who engages with that increases their impression count, which tricks the algorithm into thinking they have more impressions. So they're
Hmm.
able to get multiple thousands of impressions per day by posting the same thing. And then they grow with followers because of that, because it's new to somebody. Because the AI starts to force more people to see it. When I was engaging daily, and putting out content daily. I don't think you put out content daily, right? It's almost daily.
Every couple of days or so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're not daily anymore. But when I was daily, and I'm sure you saw this too when you were daily, um, the difference in impression count is massive. The AI doesn't really care what you're posting, but as long as you're posting consistently and people are engaging with your content.
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that. They have been changing and tinkering with the algorithm lately, so I think that's probably less true than it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, which is
But
funny. I've seen similar. Yeah.
yeah, but I do think that there's sort of an emerging thirst for authentic content. To get back to your earlier point, because there is so much AI slop out there now that if someone's out there actually writing stuff themselves and like giving actual insights and saying, "Hey, this is BS, and maybe this is how you should think about it," I
Yeah.
think there's an audience for that now. And maybe there's more of a demand for that than ever.
No, I totally agree, and that's what I tell people, like, "Look, if you're trying to get into technology or trying to get into cyber, just start putting out content.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter how great it is or how perfect it is, just put it out there, have fun with it, talk about your journey, talk about your struggles, don't turn it into a trauma dump, but, like, talk about, like, "Hey, I've been working on learning Java, or I've been working on" and share that knowledge because to somebody, it's going to have value.
Right.
And when they see you giving back to the community, that's it. That's what it's all about. That's what we look for when we're hiring new people. Um, let's plug your stuff, man. I don't want to keep you much longer. Like, where do you want people to go? Where can people check out your courses? Because I highly, highly recommend going to see Frank's stuff. He is a pioneer in the field of large language models and kind of AI, and has been an expert for many, many years, and is just a genuinely good human who tries to do right with his like kind of audience and power. So where do you want people to check out your stuff? LinkedIn, obviously, but anywhere else? Is Udemy still a thing?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But if you're going to go to one place, head to my website. It's sundog-education.com, and you'll find links to all my Udemy stuff and non-Udemy stuff and everything else I offer. So yeah.
Oh man, and I'll definitely link it too in this post. I appreciate your time, brother. I appreciate your insights. I love what you're doing. please don't stop giving back and educating, because I think you're right. Like, we're gonna need authentic voices and people who actually are putting in the work, so to speak, to kind of keep this thing alive, because it's going to be weird for a bit. I think it's going to get interesting.
Yep.
Um, yeah, but no, I appreciate you, man. Anyone else? Good luck out there.